Greetings, comrades. My name is Gigantles, and you may be a bit confused by the title of this video, or at least part of it. The reason why I say I'm going to receive a lot of hate soon is because of a series I'm scheduling for release starting today evening, because I already schedule posts for 8 p.m. release. It concerns a series of posts I'll be releasing on my Facebook page. And the reason why I'm going to be getting a lot of hate is because it concerns a matter that the rad trads hate. You see, on Facebook, there's a piece of media that's been going around, which is basically a picture from a page of a publication known as the Fatima Crusader. Okay, and here's what it looks like, the page I'm talking about. Now, the Fatima Crusader is a restorationist or rad trad page which believes that the 1984 consecration of Russia was invalid. Even though Sister Lucia, the visionary for Fatima, said that it was fulfilled, they reject that in order to promote their own neo-Gnostic claims about it. In fact, I can do a whole another video about the Our Lady of Fatima apparitions and visions and explain why the consecration was valid. I did an extensive series about it. I think it was like 41 posts or something on Facebook, so check out my page Gigantian Apologetics for that. But this image you see here, I can tell you right now that that all the information on it is either out of context, unrelated, or falsified. And because it concerns communion on the tongue as an apostolic tradition, look, let me make myself clear. I have nothing against those who want to receive communion in the hand or on the tongue, okay? If you can do it reverently, then you can do it however you want. But it's because I'm going to be refuting this apparent evidence for communion on the tongue as an apostolic tradition that I'm going to receive a lot of hate. But this also ties in with another post I released last night, which says, well, it basically covers the morality of arguments and whether or not you should use known falsified information or poor arguments to support your claims. And I said it's not right to use evidence or arguments that rely on false information or things out of context, because not only would it undermine us if it were proven by others that the information was false or out of context, but it's also not right on our end, because to an extent we are lying and deceiving others, especially if we knew that it was fake, or not trustworthy enough to present in the first place. Which is why I said that we should ask ourselves if the information we present would be permissible in court. And if it doesn't pass the test, then you probably shouldn't share it, because God would not want you to lie or deceive others for his sake. Okay, that's not what he wants. So I'm going to be refuting this series. I'm going to be making a series of posts refuting every one of the apparent sources from which the references, or rather, I'm going to be refuting the references, not always the sources, because some of the sources do exist, but their claims about them have been lied about. And like I said, this is going to receive a lot of hate, despite me not doing anything heretical or wrong. I'm refuting a piece of false information. I'm refuting pieces of false information. I need to slow. I know I need to slow myself down a little bit. So yeah, I'm going to be receiving a lot of hate for that. The other thing I wanted to mention was how, well, I'm not sure how I'm going to word it yet, but you've probably seen a reference to Chaldea or Chaldean or the Chaldean Rite in my title. And the reason why is because I found one of the best arguments possible against the restorationists and rad trads for why we can't receive communion on the hand. So the one of the best arguments is not necessarily. Of course, you could go into the metaphysics of it and talk about how communion on the hand isn't wrong if done correctly and everything. But the best argument I find is actually how communion in the hand is actually the most traditional method of receiving communion, according to the Chaldean Rite. The Chaldean Rite is practiced in the Middle East, although there's a couple of others around, I think in the US and Europe and Australia. And it is the majority of Christians who practice it are in Iraq. And it is, for them, it is both the most traditional and apostolic method of reception of communion. So for rad trads and restorationists to say that you can't receive communion in the hand because it is a Protestant invention or it's heretical or sacrilegious, that's basically to condemn an entire rite practice over the last 2,000 years as sacrilegious, as well as condemning the Vatican, the Vatican would never allow a sacrilegious behavior such as receiving in the hand to continue if it was sacrilegious. Okay, it wouldn't allow that. So not only would it undermine the Vatican, but it would also undermine the entire canonicity, I believe, of one of the Eastern rites. So what I'm doing now when I go to Mass is when I go to receive communion, I first genuflect, do the sign of the cross, and then I go and receive in the hand. But I can't show you because I'm holding my phone with one hand. But when I put up my hands for communion, I try and make like a cross with them, like Saint Cyril of Jerusalem said we should. And then instead of picking him up with my fingers, I take the communion in my hand like this, and I go like that. So I don't, I avoid dropping him or anything. But that's why I'm going to be adopting this Chaldean practice, because then the rad-trats can't see anything about it. And if they do, then I can just say they're overreaching with the Latin rite against the Eastern rites. Because there's nothing wrong with receiving communion in the hand or receiving it necessarily in an Eastern manner. Okay, because the Pope is already Pope Paul VI, was it him? I can't remember. A bunch of other popes as well. They've already approved of receiving communion in the hand, which they have the authority to do so. And I'm also partaking in an apostolic tradition according to the Eastern rites. So I'm going to be I may receive him on the tongue if I do go to Latin Mass. I've got nothing wrong with that. But I'm going to be receiving him according to the Chaldean Rite. So the restorationists and rad-trats can't say anything against me. But that's pretty much it. So I'm going partly Chaldean. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And I'm going to be hated a lot because I'm making a series refuting poor rad-trat arguments against receiving communion on the tongue and why communion on the hand. Against receiving communion on the hand and why communion on the tongue is apostolic. Because again, the sources in this information from the Fatima Crusader, they're either completely falsified, taken out of context, or irrelevant. But otherwise, that's it for me. So have a good weekend, all of you. God bless you all. See you in the next video, comrades. Until then.